welcome back to another episode, and today I'll be showing you how to counter the Stafford Gambit. Well, it's not actually a Stafford Gambit. Well, is it? IDK. So you go into the pit trough and then you take the pawn, but instead of playing d6, which after here takes, you get a really symmetrical position. Black, instead of playing that move, Black plays knight c6, but this is actually winning for white by 2 points. But black has a lot of attacking chances, so you can't play, if you're not prepared, you can probably get mated like 17 times or something like that. Basically here, they're threatening this pawn. You don't want to push, and most people play d3. But what I like to play and counter the Stafford is by playing f3, because this is another way of a pawn push and a defensive pawn. But basically, we're not playing d3 because we want d4 down. So basically here, black might try knight takes e4. This is a blunder, but it has an idea, which is if you take, they check. But you can actually play g3, because if they think they're gonna fork you, you can pin their queen to the king, and then you trade queens off. But a much simpler way to play it is to just move the queen down, you pin the knight to the king, and then basically they're just kind of cooked. If they play queen h4 check, you can play g3, and they don't have this sacking idea because they're pinned. Let's go back a bit, and here, let's see. I've studied the Stafford Gambit as black at chessreps.com. Basically, they recommend knight h5. They haven't talked into this a lot, like they've only done one line. But basically, they want check takes and then takes the rook, because you have to play pawn takes, you know? So here, you can play a queen e2, and the idea is if they play queen h4 check, you can play g3, and if they play knight takes g3, you can play queen f2, and then you pin their knight to the queen. They might try bishop d6 and stop you from taking like this way, because if you take from this way, they win the rook. But here you can just move your rook, and then you win the knight. Like, this rook move is a bit obscure, because you feel like the rook's actually protecting a pawn, but like your queen's protecting a pawn. But then you think it's overloading because you're also pinning the knight to the queen, which is really confusing, but it works. So yeah. They might try something like knight f5. You can take it. It's not that big of a deal. Your queen's defending, you know. Here, if they try like moving the queen back, well, you just play normally, right? I mean, like, they just committed this terrible knight move that no longer does anything. You can't really take. I mean, you could play your bishop here and then castle. I mean, that would be an idea. Maybe like push f4 to like open up your bishop a bit and attack the knight. But basically, you're safe here now. You can see why. They don't really have a lot of attacking moves. Like, for example, if you can just play d4, bishop e3, and long castle, or you can play bishop g2, f4, and then short castle. Like, it's a dynamic game now, but you're just up 1 pawn, and then here, white's up 2.5. Yeah, literally 2.5. Like, Stockfish 17 thinks this is just absolutely winning. White has a decisive advantage. Here, the engine, Stockfish 17, likes bishop c5 or f5, because bishop c5 targets the no longer their f2 pawn. Well, basically, bishop c5 develops the bishop, but it also targets this weak square, so like you might get in somehow. So let's look at bishop c5 first. If they play bishop c5, you might just play c3, but this is not good. because they are actually threatening knight f4. So you have to be pretty careful here. You just have to be worried about this move. You just have to see it, and it is good. You could play g3, you could play d3. You can't play nothing else. You can play king g1, which is the third engine move. It's like, you're still better. But basically, yeah, I think g3 is alright. Because basically, how are you supposed to develop the bishop here? I feel like d3 is also alright, but like, you see the bishop here isn't actually doing anything. The bishop's inside like a pyramid. It's kind of like the Coley defense, but everything's one square ahead. Okay, I'm talking nonsense now. So here, you just play queen e2, and then you're good. If they play bishop c5, you can play g3 or d3. And then basically you can trade off the bishops and short castle since you're guarding that square. Just play bishop e3, short castle, and then you're just up material. So what if play f5? Well, you're gonna take the pawn with check first. So this part is where you're opening up your king and this file. So when they castle, the rook attacks this pawn, but they can already take it. So here you can play g4 to defend the pawn. They will play knight f4 most likely. If they play knight f6, then just develop normally because they can't really do anything anymore. Play knight c3 to stop them their knight to rerouting to d5 because they have to play that if they don't play knight f4. But anyways, they could do that even if their knight was on f4. So like, why would they not play this move, right? So knight f4, queen e4, you're attacking the knight. The knight can probably go to d5, which I was saying. But if it gets defended like queen d5, you can just develop like maybe like threaten the knight like this, and then like maybe push c3 or just like not defend this. Knight d5, just trade off the knights. I mean, you're up a pawn anyways, right? I mean, they might try like something like a bishop h4 after the castle. But here we can play bishop c4, and if they play bishop h4 check, they're helping us because we just sidestep the pinning threat. So it's actually kind of helpful for us. You have to be a little bit careful. But other than that, you're completely good. Like, they might try like bishop here and a rook in, and then try to check you putting the rook down, but like you can always put the king here. So there's not a lot of problems. So they have to play knight d5, and basically you're just gonna trade the knights off. If they try like castling, you can play bishop c4 still. Just gonna pin it. If they try like, I guess, yeah, bishop h4 check, king f1, you sidestep the pin, they will play rook e8, but you take, because you can see that after it takes, you can play queen takes d5 check. So they have to trade queens, or you trade queens with them. And basically, if they check here, you can play king g2, and if they check again, you can play king h3, and basically, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. If they play g5, you just take it. It's really simple. So yeah, that's basically it. If they play knight h5, but they might try like something like bishop c5 still. This isn't worth much. You can just play c3 and d4 like what I said. The knight h5 line doesn't include this because this takes too long, and then they might get an attack in somewhere. But here, bishop c5 actually doesn't do anything because, you know, they can't put the knight on here. And if they still take, then you just take, and if they check, you play g3. And if they take, you do what? Still same thing. Just pin. And then after they like trade and something and then like castle, you can play like d4. And then they like move the bishop back, I guess. You can play, I mean, you could definitely castle, but you can also play king f2, which is probably a better square for the king actually, because their rook can't really check you right now, and then their bishop couldn't check you, and then this bishop can't check you because of the pawns. So king f2 is probably a better square for the king, but if you want to activate the rook, you can, of course. Basically, that's all of today's episode, and a quick review: e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight takes e5, knight c6, knight takes c6, d takes c6, and then you play f3. So here after f3, if they go something like bishop c5, a slowing or like a useless approach, play c4 and d4, c3 and d4. But if they try something like knight h5, you play queen e2 to block the threats. And if they, for example, check and then try to attack you, you can play queen f2 to pin their own knight to the queen, and then if they try to defend, you can play a special rook g1 move, which is not seen a lot in the early game.